Welcome back to Deck Check. I'm Ganesh, and we'll be doing a fun tier list this time, ranking the top 40 commanders based on their speed. This will be a little subjective, but I played against most of these decks at least a few times, and checked out some deck lists before recording, so I'll have a good idea of what's going on. We'll be scoring them on a 5-point system with S at the top, and then A through D. Something to note is a lot of these decks can win on turn 1. It's really as simple as fast mana into Thoracle or docksiding into some other win con. So instead of judging on how fast they can win, we will judge more on what turn they try to win on average, with a little less focus on dockside unless it's core to the strategy, like with Corvold. Comment down below if there's a commander you'd like me to add for future videos. So let's get started with Bruce Thrasios. So I would say this is average in terms of speed. It can win very quickly with the dockside Emil, but most of the time this deck is happy to sit back with Thrasios, Passios, and maybe get a Seedborn Muse out, which will then take another couple of turn rotations to win. We might bump this guy up to the average tier, but for now we're going to put him at the top of C in terms of speed. Next up we have Tevesh Crom. This deck can go pretty fast if it needs to. A lot of times they're going to focus on Crom or Tevesh, just getting those two out. But after they draw a few cards, they can very quickly present a win, in my opinion. They can also be on Necropotent sometimes. So we're going to go ahead and put them in the A tier. Just because like a lot of other Grixis good stuff decks, they can go very quickly. Next up, we have Thrasios Dargo. This is another sort of similar deck like Tevesh Crom that can go very quick. The Dargo serves as a very good combo outlet and works very well with Dockside and Artifact in general, so this deck can definitely push out a quick win. We might bump them down a little bit to B if the other decks seem faster. Next up, we have Quark Sakashima. This is very, very average into how fast it can win. Now, if they get both their commanders down early and then they get a lot of ritual effects, you are going to lose very quickly. However, most of the time what kind of happens is they get interacted with a little bit and then they try to win later on in the game. And so for that reason, we're going to put them in the very average B tier. So next, Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator with Tana. So they're just basically with this deck trying to green creature tutor for the pirate. So this is going to definitely go in A tier because they are really trying to win very quickly and not interested in the long game. So we're going to put them up here. Next up we have Malcolm Timna, which is certainly a very good deck, but in terms of speed and how fast it's wanting to go win the game, it is absolutely not doing that quickly at all. They run a lot of stacks creatures and things like that. So while it's a very good deck, it does not really pressure wins very early. So we're going to put them in D tier as a stacks deck. Next is Rog Thrasios. So this is a pretty freaking fast deck. You'd be hard pressed to find faster decks than this in general in the format. So we are going to go ahead and put it up here in the S tier. Zoom out a little bit here. So yeah. Next up we have Rogsai, of course, very classic turbo deck. We are putting him up in the S tier, a little faster than Rog Thrasios because we have rituals and things in black, and so there's a lot less focus on dockside, so this can go a little faster on average, I think. Next, Jessica Timna. This is a very classic ad nauseum deck. You can get a little bit of value with Timna and Jessica, but in general, they are just trying to go fast and win the game. So we will put that up in S tier in terms of speed. Blue Farm, my favorite. This is a deck that can go fast. We can go for our ad nauseas and things like that, but most of the time we are not interested and we are just trying to get our commanders out. So I would say this is B tier in terms of just average in terms of speed. There will be games where we try to go faster, but so yeah, let's go ahead and put it in the top of B tier for now. Oh, Blood Pod. Yep, this is a stacks deck. So in the bottom it goes. It's even slower than Malcolm Timna in that it runs a lot more like Blood Moon effects, things like that. So very slow deck here, but still not a bad deck. Timna Thrasios. So this is going to be about similar to Bruce Thrasios in terms of speed and how fast can win, but it's going to be a bit slower in my opinion because we don't have Dockside, so we can't leverage that at all. So we're going to put in the bottom of C tier here. Thrasios Vial Smasher. So this can go a bit faster, especially with the right hand. But a lot of the times they're going for that Curiosity Control, Thrasios, Passios kind of style. But we will put it above Bruce Tarl here because they get access to black as well, so they can really just grab whatever they need to. We'll bump that up a little past Bruce Tarl Thrasios there. Next up is Anala. This is a very fast deck, especially if they're able to land a Spellseeker quickly, so they can end the game real quick. So for that reason, let's go ahead and put them up in A tier. This is going to be faster usually than Tevish Crom, especially depending on the wizards they get. So we're going to put them up in A tier here. Joyra, Storm deck. So yes, very fast. You dump Joyra and then you play a bunch of rocks. Now how fast this is really just depends on if they can get Joyra to actually stick. Usually people just kill it on sight. So in most games it won't be faster than some of these other decks, just kind of on average because of how fragile this commander can be. But still, she's very fast, so we'll put her up in the S. Najeela. So this deck, like Blue Farm, can win quickly, especially if they're able to lend out a quick to Revi. But a lot of time the threat that Najeela faces is just inevitability in that she is going to eventually kill everyone on the board. That's a lot of times where she is best, I think. So for Najeela, we will put her above Blue Farm in terms of speed. We might move her over to the A tier later, just depending on the other decks. Godo! So very classic turbo deck. They are leaning a little bit more into Staxy creatures and other things nowadays, I believe. But still, the objective, of course, is to just YOLO ramp out Godo as quickly as possible. And so this will be in the A tier. The reason it's not going to actually be higher is because they are lacking another color, so it's going to be hard for them to consistently put out Godo quickly. So they don't have consistent access to Dockside or the black rituals. But as it stands, this is actually, I think, quite a bit faster than Dargo, Thrasios, and Malcolm. So I'll put them right here. Dihada. This is a Turbo Naz deck that relies on its Planeswalker effect, where it makes treasures. So this is going to go into the S tier in terms of speed. It can go very quick, but I don't think it's faster than Joyra in terms of how fast it can really just win the game. Now with the right hand, anything can happen, but so yeah, let's move this over as well, because this is kind of in the same category as Dihada over here, where they're just a fast Adnos deck or Dockside deck. Sisay! This is not as slow as these Stacks decks, but it's really not very fast either. To actually win with this commander, usually you're going to have to get to late game and kind of sit there and spin her a few times. So this is going to go probably about here, because it's not as slow as TNT, but I don't really feel like it's faster than Bruce Thrasios, especially because Bruce Thrasios gets access to like training grounds and Seedborn Muses and things like that. They can really leverage, so we'll put it right here. I think that's about the right spot. Tivit. Very average, I would say, in terms of speed. It can win very quickly with the time sieve, but like how fast it goes really depends on how fast Tivit actually comes out. So we will put him a little bit behind blue farm in terms of speed on how fast they usually win the game. What usually happens here is they get out Tibet and they just kind of sit there generating value for a while before they try to win. But they also don't have access to dockside, so we're going to put them below blue farm here. Now, as far as whether or not they're faster than Quark Thrasius, I think Quark's actually moves a little bit faster, actually, so we'll bump it down a little bit there. Atraxa, another very average commander in terms of speed. If anything, a little slower. They're mostly just trying to control the board and chill until they can cast Attraction, then refuel that way. So we're going to put her actually at the top of C tier in just terms of speed. It's not a deck that wins very fast, but that's not to say it's not very powerful. It's a very strong commander. It just doesn't threaten wins as quickly as other decks tend to do. Alright, so next up we have Talion the Kindly Lord. So this is going to go in D tier. So it'll go right here. It is a very, very slow control deck. Most of the time they're just wanting to cast Talion and just chill. Not really much going on there. But that said, I will say they're probably faster a little bit than Tymna Tana. So let's actually move Malcolm Tymna a little bit above them, because Malcolm Tymna could go a bit faster, really just because of Malcolm's treasure generation. They'll always have the mana up to do whatever they want. So I'd put him, edge him up a little bit over Talion. So Kirik, pretty much the fastest possible deck. Very, very consistently presents turn 1 wins. As long as you can get the commander out and you have some sort of tutor that you can also cast at the same time, that's game, like a lot of the time. So it is faster than Rogsa. It is faster than all of these turbo decks. That isn't to say it's better than these decks in anything except for speed, but it is, in my opinion, very, very fast. Tayum, another very, very slow stacks deck. In my opinion, this does go a little faster than Blood Pod, just because they run like mana dorks and things, and they're able to get stuff back when they need to. So if one of their mana dorks gets killed, they can just bring it back. So that gives them like a little tiny bit of boost in speed. So we'll put it right here for now. Next up is Niv Mizzet. This is another kind of commander that's very heavily reliant on the commander itself, just like Atraxa. So we will put it, I do feel like it's a little bit faster than Atraxa. It can be, especially if they're able to get it out. But then again, the casting cost is pretty hard to actually get off. And it's usually more of a control deck, so the more I think about it, I think it's going to go right about here. But once that ball gets rolling, they are going to probably win very quickly. Next up is Urza. So there's probably two ways you can really go with Urza. As far as which is better, it's hard to say. They can kind of go that Staxy route, which is like what I think most people are on. Or they can kind of go more of a turbo polymorph route. But I think most people these days are on the stacks route. So we were going to put him at the top of... I'll say he's a little bit faster than Sisay, just because he has access to tutors and things like that, like artifact tutors. So I'd say he's a little bit faster than Sisay, but maybe not faster than some of these other decks in terms of how fast they're going to try to win. Yuriko. So this is a tough one. A lot of how fast this deck wins really just depends on the flips. So let's say on average each flip is 5 damage, you know, so really she is going to be about average into how fast she wins unless she's going for Thoracle. I would say Yuriko can definitely pressure the table a lot faster than Atraxa can because of how cheap and efficient it is. And I would say it's probably a bit more fast than Najeela into how fast it's actually trying to kill you. So really the better spot for her is probably an A, just in terms of how fast she can start killing you, especially if they get Brainstorm and Draco off the top and things like that. Like, your life total is going to go fast. Corvold. So this is a Dockside deck, and we can't really rank this accurately without completely factoring in Dockside. So this is also going to be in the S tier in terms of speed. But this is very heavily dependent on Dockside actually resolving. So we're going to put him at the bottom here, because when that doesn't happen, he just kind of cries. So, all right. Next to Kinnan. Kinnan can win quickly with Basalt, but usually doesn't. Usually they're just sitting there deploying their big things. But they really can present quick wins sometimes, especially if they're not on the very, very slow Staxy version. So I would put him like right about here. It really just depends on what they draw. Maybe a little slower than Miza here, actually. So, all right, next up is Winota. This is going to be a fast deck, so A tier, but whether or not they actually do anything, it really depends on whether Winota sticks. So let's say Winota sticks, she will probably kill you in like a turn or two. So let's see, Winota on turn 2, and then creatures and things. So this is more, I think, actually average. It is going to be a little faster than Nagila into how fast it actually wants to kill you. But it definitely takes time. And it is a stacks deck as well, which is weird as to how far up it is on here. But Winota can kill you very quickly, so it kind of deserves the spot right here. Magda can win real quick. So we are going to put her about here. Because you can get that turn 1 dwarf and run out Magda and then get your clock, and that's game, which can be over very, very quickly. So we're just going to drop her right there. Ob Nixilis. So this is more of a mid-range deck, despite what you would think about it being a Rakdos commander. Most of the more effective builds I've seen are mid-range. But they are still wanting to kind of get that Bull Citadel out quickly, or the Adnaz, things of that nature. So we're going to put him about here in terms of how fast he's really trying to execute his game plan. I think at the bottom of A tier does make sense. Next up is Kenrith. So there's a lot of different ways you can build Kenrith. But the more effective ones, it seems like, are going turbo. But you also have to factor in all the other builds. So we're just going to go ahead and put him smack in the middle of B tier, just because you can take this commander so many different directions. So I think a lot of the more effective ones are turbo, so we'll put him at the top of B. But this one's a bit of a anomaly in that you can play him really any way you want. You could even play him stacks. Rocco, Cabaretti Caterer. This is another stacks deck, but it's not as slow as some of these other decks at the bottom, especially since you can kind of like go for Dockside just in the commander. So we are going to put him a little bit faster than TNT. But generally speaking, it's not a fast deck at all. So maybe a little slower actually, because they're running a lot of stacks creatures. Cody, turbo deck. This in terms of speed is very, very fast. It's gonna be right under Carrick in terms of speed. The only reason it isn't higher up than Carrick is with Carrick you can very consistently put out turn 1, turn 2 wins. But with Cody, you have to play the commander and then you have to wait a turn for using this ability. So it is turn 2 minimum that they actually try to win with Nas. But with Carrick, you can just play him and just go. So he is going to be the fastest so far. Next up is Tasigur. So if you're not familiar, this is actually a turbo deck, which is kind of weird. You can take Tasigur and then kind of polymorph him into something else, and then just kind of win the game. His Delve ability lets you get him out very quickly. But as far as do I think he is faster than Joyra? No, I don't. Do I think he's faster than some of these Mardu decks? Not really. A lot of times they're going to be leveraging their ability to maybe generate some card advantage. Then again, they can win very quickly, so we'll put them right about here. Yeah, maybe a little faster than Jorah. They can Eldritch Evolution into something and just win the game. So that'll do it for this tier list. If you disagree with any of these placements, let me know in the comments. Some of these might not be 1000% where they need to be, but this is, I think, a very good general idea of how fast most of the decks in the format are at the current moment. So if you made it this far, thanks very much for watching. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, and I will see you later.